Hi, my name is Gargibola, and in this video I'm going to review how to create an editorial content calendar. But what is an editorial content calendar? It's a visual way for you to see how your content is being structured for the month, for the quarter, for the year. It's a way for you to clearly see what you plan to produce, what is going to be published, so you can plan for your deadlines and who's going to do the work as well. And ideally on your content calendar, you would clearly distinguish between what platform you're going to produce the content on. Is it content produced on a blog, a podcast, or a YouTube video, for example? But also it helps you make sure that your content is being aligned for your business goals, audience needs, and key dates or campaigns that you have. For example, do you have a webinar that you need to plan content out ahead of time so that you can promote the webinar and produce content related to the webinar? The key components of your content calendar usually include your content topic or titles. For example, even if you do not have a specific title for a blog or a podcast, for example, you may know that 1 month is a heart health month, or that 1 week is related to maybe occupational therapy, for example, so that you would have a week where you know the content I'm going to produce is related to this topic, but I don't have a specific title for that content yet. Also publishing your dates for publish and your deadlines. For example, if a blog has to be published on February, but you need to have it actually ready to go on your website, the graphics need to be completed, so you can plan what dates everything needs to be completed before the blog can actually be published. Who's going to do the work? What writers do you need? What graphic designers do you need? Helps you plan what resources you need ahead of time. Also, your platforms. Are you going to produce it on a blog, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, or even a podcast? What content types? Is it going to be an article, a short form video, or an email campaign? Also, what is your goal for the content? Do you want engagement? Do you want to drive traffic or leads or registrations for a webinar? And also, you can track the status of your content. Is this just an idea, a general topic you have in mind? Is someone actually actively working on the content on your blog or your podcast? Has it been scheduled, and has it been published? It allows you to track, even if it's just color coding, allows you to track what the state of the content is. But before we begin planning and writing your content, you need to really define first, what are the goals for your content? Do you want to increase brand awareness? Is this content going to drive traffic to your website? Are you promoting a webinar? Do you need to generate leads, registrations from it? Or is this content just a tool you're using for general expertise and authority building in your industry? So part of this the goal planning process is, what is your goal? Ideally, you want to use a SMART goal, make it specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. So for example, that would look like, I'm going to increase registrations for this event by 15% from the last webinar. Or I want to have 100 attendees for this webinar, a specific goal that you can measure and that you can track if you're hitting it. So ideally for the webinar, by say a week before, you need to have this percentage. You need to follow up to make sure you have retention 24 hours ahead. So you can really plan out your steps for attaining your goals. And then also, what is your ideal buyer? This should be a part of your planning process, is who is your ideal persona, your ideal buyer? What do they care about? What are the demographics? What age, income, education, psychographics would be the things they're interested in. What blogs do they read? What publications are they reading? Even what events are they attending? So you can kind of really pinpoint how you would frame your content, and also even what platforms you can use to promote your content. Goals and challenges. What goals and challenges do they face that your product or service is actually going to help them solve? How do they use social media? What platforms are they using? You may not need to be on every social media platform, but what is the one that they're primarily using that you need to be on to engage? And for example, you could actually be on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, but one should be the top one that you're promoting and use and publishing content primarily on, and the others can be secondary. Also, what is your buyer behavior and journey? What is the process that every buyer goes through before they make a buying decision? If you think about your own personal life, if you're going to buy a car, What steps do you take before you actually go to the dealership and purchase the car? Are you going to research safety? Are you going to read consumer reports? Or do you go on YouTube and look for people's reviews? Are you going to go to, say, manufacturer websites and look at the car options, the model options, color options? Think about the steps you go through when you make a buying decision and try to dive into the process that your buyer's going through. Are they looking on Amazon and Yelp for reviews before they finally walk in the door, or they complete a purchase? Really dive into that, because that's going to also tell you how many touch points of content that your buyer is going to take before they make that buying decision. And once you have these kind of goals started, the next step is to identify the key themes and topics for your content calendar by doing topic research, doing keyword research and SEO research, looking at industry trends and content strategy. So as you start doing topic research, you have to identify those key themes and topics that resonate with your target audience. So for example, if I'm a real estate agent, the overarching topic pillars, not specific titles, but the overarching topics I might look at are going to be home selling, home buying, first time buyers, and maybe also even home buying loan process. Those would be the big arching topics that many content ideas can fall under. So for example, if I'm going to keep it really simple, if I'm going to look at first time home buying process, then my keyword research would be as first time buyers would be one thing I will look at. And I can use Google Keyword Planner, Google Search, Google Trends, and SEMrush to do keyword analysis and research to find what search terms people are actively searching on Google. And that would help me tailor my content for that search volume. And also it would also give you ideas of what kind of content you can produce under those content pillars. And then look at industry trends. What are people in your industry talking about? If I'm a real estate agent, I might see people talking about in the news, in my groups, in my associations. They may be talking about the interest. They may be talking about first-time home buyer programs, maybe changes in the program, government assistance programs for home-time buyers, loan, what credit scores people need now. Like, what are those new pieces of news that are coming out that are relevant to your clients and customers? Now, the next thing we want to do is when you have some content and topic ideas, we want to start figuring out what's going to be our cadence, what's going to be our publishing frequency and timing. Because determining this at the very beginning helps you determine and establish your consistency so you can maintain engagement with your audience. I've seen many businesses where they start out, we're going to do 3 blog posts a week, we're going to do 2 videos a week, 1 podcast a week, and because it takes so much effort and so much lift for that cadence, that they start tapering off because they had a lot of energy at the beginning, and by the end, business goals, timing, and busy schedules means that that's going to get impacted. So at the beginning, I would suggest you be conservative. Consider a conservative frequency. For example, you might only do 1 blog a week. You can always add more once you establish that consistency. Do 1 podcast a week or even 2 podcasts a month. Establish that consistency ahead of time because, like I said, you can always go back as you get more comfortable and you get more of a efficient workflow process. Then also consider batching time. If you want to produce 4 blog posts in a month, which should be 1 a week, consider batching that time where in 1 week, maybe the month before that month, you actually produce all the blog posts for the next coming month. Also, what tools do you need? Scheduling tools, graphic tools. Do you need to purchase anything? Do you also need to hire a staff or consultant to help you with the work? Consider all of these things ahead of time, because if you do not have a graphic designer and the writer has to produce the graphics, they're going to need more time to do that, especially if it's not their area of expertise. Now, the next is we need to decide what tools we're going to use to actually manage our content calendar and create a content calendar. And choose the right tools makes a big difference when it comes to efficiency, organization, and also workflow process. And because there are countless options and countless tools you can use for planning your content and planning your process is make sure you find the right one that fits your team. Is there a tool you're already using, like for example Jira or Trello, that you can incorporate a content calendar into, so the entire workflow process is even more efficient and people already are experiencing using that tool. The best tools make it really easy for you to plan, share, and collaborate. So looking at project management tools such as Trello and Asana and Jira, which allow you to clearly see deadlines, who's going to do the work, and what the status of the current task is. Also, calendar for your editorial calendar. You can use Trello or Jira, and that's perfectly fine. If you don't use those tools, then you can also just use Google Calendar or even a paper calendar to track what publishing dates you have for your content. You can use scheduling tools, Hootsuite for social media, WordPress. If your website is on WordPress, you can actually schedule a blog ahead of time. So if you want to produce 4 blogs for the month, you can actually schedule all those blogs out ahead of time. HubSpot also allows you to schedule social media scheduling and landing page website scheduling. And CoSchedule is great for social media. And even social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook have the scheduling built into the platform itself. You don't need to schedule on Hootsuite. You can actually go into the back end of these programs and schedule the videos and schedule the content out ahead of time as well. And scheduling will save you a lot of time and effort at the end. Your content calendar can actually be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. You can simply list your publishing dates for each content piece and the platform, or you can make it more detailed and actually put the task and the deadline for each specific content piece. So for example, if I'm going to produce a blog and have it published on Friday, I'm going to need that WordPress article uploaded and completed and ready to go, see, on Thursday or Wednesday. So my content calendar might actually have a task listed or a note listed that the blog has to be live on the website on Wednesday. And a part of your workflow process is actually deciding generally where your content themes, your topics, and what's your posting schedule. And I would also recommend that creating a blank calendar where you can list generally that you're going to have a YouTube video on this date, you're going to do YouTube on this date, publish on blog on these dates. So you kind of see your cadence and decide that's going to be the best cadence for you to use. So what that might look like is, this is a blank calendar I created. So for example, on this one, I would release 2 blogs in a month. For August, it would be on the 4th and the 18th. So color code that blogs would be on this date. Red would be I'm going to do a YouTube video on Tuesdays. Then on Wednesday, I might do an email campaign. So color coding it this way on a blank calendar helps you kind of see what you plan to produce, and also determine if this is going to be a doable cadence that you can actually use. Do you have the time, the resources to do 2 blogs in a month and do YouTube videos and do email campaigns? And so you can visually see if this is going to work for you going forward. Now, once you've sort of developed a blank idea for your cadence or your posting schedule, the next is to decide who's going to do the work and how you're going to delegate it. And also what deadlines they're going to have to produce the work. Then also tracking and monitoring and making sure not just the publishing date, but also making sure all those little milestones and tasks are being completed and you're hitting them. And also any approvals are being completed as well. And then following up on ROI, you're not going to just produce content for it to go out to the ether. You actually wanted to bring back some ROI for your business. So looking at it on a monthly basis, weekly basis, quarterly basis, what is the ROI and what is the traction? What content pieces are working and what content pieces do not work, and using the successful ones for ideation for future ideas. And what this workflow will look like in practice, if not on your calendar specifically, but working backward, when you're going to release something, then what's your approval process? How much time does your team need for designing and editing? And also how much time does the person actually need to create the content? And also any research work that needs to go into producing the content. Another consideration for your team would be a specific person, your team's workload. How busy are they in a month, in a week? Is there, for next month, are you producing a webinar, and that's going to require a lot of time from your team. So planning all that workload out ahead of time. Also, any PTO, any holidays coming up that someone may not be available to do any work. And also collaboration between your teams, either internally in your department or with other people in your company. So for example, if I'm going to produce a social media content, whether that's a webinar, a social media post, I'm going to produce some content for Halloween. It's going to be published on October 31st. But before that, I need someone to approve it. So I want to give someone enough time to actually approve it, and the approval has to be done by the 24th. But my designing person, my design team, actually has some PTO. So I need to plan for that production time ahead of time. Next, what time does a content person have to create it and have it completed so it can go to the graphic designer, so the graphic designer can get that design work done? And how much time does the research need to be completed by in order for the person to write it? So if I'm going to have a Halloween post on the 31st, someone has to really start it on October 5th so they can be completed by the 11th, give it to the designer so the designer can do the work because the designer has PTO, but we'll be back in the office on the 12th of October. And then the designer needs to get everything to the final person who's going to approve it so that it can be produced and released and scheduled by October 31st. That's kind of how the entire process works. Now, social media posts may not take a month, but to give you an idea of how the planning process should be working for your team. Now that you've got that planning, now you start filling in your editorial calendar with specific topics and deadlines. Editorial calendars are really your content marketing playbooks for your team so that you can be consistent and successful. Now, your content calendar, like I stated before, can have all the tasks for a specific content piece or just the publishing dates. You can really make it your own, but make sure it works for your team. You don't have so much information on your content calendar that your team starts getting lost in the weeds and maybe things start falling between the cracks. But consider the content calendar really your number one planning tool so you can start seeing everything that has to go out and by what deadline. And then as you get your content calendar produced and content is going out, make sure to continuously review and update your editorial calendar, whether on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, because things will change. If you have content going out next month, but as something in news has happened, the content piece is irrelevant now, or doesn't make sense, or actually may be inaccurate, you need to decide what needs to be removed and how I need to change it to still make it relevant. And also, again, more time. Is there something more time that may be more important than whatever content piece you have currently going out? And review KPIs, so that you review your data, your KPIs, so that you can actually see what is working and what's not working. For example, if I'm a real estate agent and I see that articles on home selling are not getting as much traffic as articles on home buying, then I may want to focus more on the home buying process and home buying content and reduce some of my home selling content, or maybe even change how I phrase some of the content on the home selling articles or blog posts or videos, and start playing with different ideas. So in summary, the steps for your editorial calendar should be: number one, define your content goals and objectives. What content, what platforms, what is your end goal, and your metric of ROI and success for that content. Then decide key themes and topics for your content calendar. What is your cadence? How much you're going to, what kind of content and how frequently you're going to be producing it so that you can keep being consistent and keep consistent engagement. And what tools do you want to use for your content calendar and for scheduling and for planning? And what's your workflow process? Who is going to do the work? If not a specific person, but a specific job function, who is that title that's going to actually do the work? Then fill in your content, then fill in your calendar with your topics and your deadlines. And then keep reviewing your editorial calendar to make sure it's still relevant, it's still accurate, and it still is insightful for your end consumer or buyer. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.